I'm sure you realize that we mentioned the impact of the financial sector crisis. In fact, we actually made mention to what took place with FinSAC, but many persons, were very, careful to correct us by saying that, hey, it's really the financial sector crisis, not necessarily FinSAC, because FinSAC was a solution to the financial sector crisis. What I would have to say about that is that though it was a solution to the financial sector crisis, we are still paying for it. It has contributed significantly to the debt. We are going to be exploring all issues surrounding FinSAC and the financial sector crisis in our research that we're about to begin. So we'll be able to inform you of what took place, what are the causes, what are the perceptions of persons who were actually here in Jamaica, the business people and so on and so forth. So look forward to that.
I'm not a Jamaican, so I'm going to be very careful responding to some of the issues that are typically Jamaican politics. But there are three things I'd like to respond to. The last question about financial bailout. If you indeed look at the data from CaPRI, you had a spike in 2001. And that spike has created a burden. Apparently, it was a bailout of commercial enterprises, commercial banks, as a result of whatever sources of crisis that they are. Now, the economics and the experiences of financial bailouts is a complex one. The internal distributive implications of bailouts is a country-by-country situation. But in terms of general policy, it is hard to take a position generally that bailouts of financial institutions will always be ruled out as a policy choice, because coming from the United Kingdom, this is precisely what we have done with the implications of the subprime rates, because apparently we balance the consequences of potential financial meltdown to the broader economy against the various hazards and the very fact of having to transfer essential resources away from investing in essential services into bailing out financial institutions. That said, because of the clear fact that the public take responsibility for a private cost, means that there has got to be an internal consensus where the private sector also takes responsibility for the social benefit. Therefore, in a sense, much broadly, it's an issue of consensus building and discussions in relation to internal politics. On the issue of big government, I just went to St. Thomas Parish. It's my only experience outside of Kingston in Jamaica. And I've been very excited when I came because I've been living in St. Andrews. It's a fantastic place. Everything exists. It's very clean. I was very impressed. I come from Ghana. I work in the United Kingdom. But walking out to St. Thomas, it struck me that there was a very little government. So in a sense, the issue of the size of a government is a complex one. It is more than the number of ministers and bureaucrats that serve a political party in power. It's about the number of teachers and nurses that serve the people in the community. Therefore, the debate is not simply how big a government is, because it is still small as a proportion of GDP compared to the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is 52% government as a share of GDP. It is just that that section of government is a portion of government that helps to build up the economy, that creates a complementary environment for the private sector to thrive. Therefore, the debate as to the size of government is more than the issue of the quantity of resources. And I think it is really important, because it does strike me that it may well be that a certain portion of government is big, another portion of government that's necessary for the people is small. So the debate might well be a rebalancing of government. Just 2 points.
The reference to FinSAC brought a comment that it was a financial sector collapse. I want to urge on you that when CaPRI looks at the history that it does not look at it from the perspective of a financial sector crisis, but rather it look at it from a collapse, or from the perspective of a collapse of the economy and not a financial sector crisis. If you start from the financial sector crisis, you start in 5 years too late. Okay, so you need to look at that carefully. The other comment that I wanted to make, rather a challenge that I wanted to advance to CaPRI. The agreement by which the government, through its agencies, sold the FinSAC assets, and these assets now pretty much comprised of the non-performing debt or the non-performing loan portfolio of the various banks. By that agreement, the purchaser, Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation, pays back to the government a percentage of what it collects, but largely it takes out of the country the lion's share. So it collects money, it remits a percentage, I think now 20% or something, to the government, and a large portion of the rest is exported. I think it is necessary to look at the impact of that for a country that is so debt-ridden, a country that is so undercapitalized. For such value to be exported from the country must be deleterious to its production. It cannot be wholesome to the country. The other thing that I think is necessary to look at is the impact of, and we use FinSAC now as a descriptive term to mean the economic meltdown, but to look at FinSAC from the perspective of the billions of dollars worth of assets that were deprived from the country's productive sector. And by that I mean, when a bank holds your assets by way of mortgage, debenture, guarantee, whatever, those assets are not available for leverage, for borrowing money to produce. So we need to look, and it's complex, we need to look at the impact of those billions of dollars of assets being locked away from the productive sector of the country. And as well, finally, I want CaPRI, I'm challenging CaPRI to do an analysis of the impact of the disincentive that the FinSAC era had, and FinSAC itself had, the disincentive on the country's entrepreneurs, and the continuing harm that that disincentive has done and continues to do.